Well, breaking fuck the news. The Russian Transportation Ministry is pissed. They released information that shows that on December 24, 2025, that this oil tanker was apparently sanctioned to fly underneath the Russian Federation flag. There's no oil on this ship. There's no oil on the ship, everybody. None. There's zero oil on this fucking ship. They were running for days. They are saying that this oil tanker was permitted by the Russian Federation to fly the flag underneath the Russian Federation on December 24, 2025. And that Moscow has lost complete communication with the oil tanker as of now. The Russians have come out and stated that this is a violation of international law. They're pissed. Hey, gangsta, the Russians are pissed. That Donald Trump tried them and they're mad as fuck. Not only that, the United Kingdom assisted with the capture by tracking this oil tanker. And the UK has come out and said, yeah, we helped. I'm too sick for this.
Welcome to NTR Takeout. Please like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so once again, Trump has gotten people talking. Many say that the conflict with Venezuela just isn't about the oil sales. United States forces removed and arrested Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in military operation this early January 2026 in hopes of negotiating oil and other issues. The United States Trump administration isn't just talking about oil. It's actively seizing tankers, negotiating taking barrels of oil, and planning long-term influence over production and sales. This will have big implications for global oil markets. Comment below you all's opinion on this. Do you think this could eventually help reduce gas prices as margins widen? Or you think Venezuela's oil infrastructure, which is decades old and degraded, would be a slow and costly process that could potentially take years to complete?
Demanding Venezuela kick out Russia, Iran, Cuba, and sever economic ties with them. Rachel Scott at the White House with late reporting tonight.
Tonight, sources telling ABC News that the U.S. conveyed a list of demands to the interim leader of Venezuela that the regime must meet before the U.S. will allow Venezuela to sell more oil. They include Venezuela must kick out China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba and sever economic ties. And Venezuela must agree to partner exclusively with the U.S. on oil production and favor the U.S. when selling heavy crude oil. The U.S. threatening the lifeline of the Venezuelan economy, imposing a military blockade. It sits on the largest oil reserves in the world. The chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, saying the U.S. plan in Venezuela hinges on controlling the oil and that he did not believe the deployment of U.S. troops will be required. With President Trump hailing the daring raid that led to the capture of Nicolas Maduro.
It was an amazing military feat. We sort of got him a little by surprise, but it was brilliant tactically. It was an incredible thing.
3 days later, still no clarity from the administration on how the U.S. plans to, quote, run Venezuela. But the president has maintained the U.S. is in charge of the country.
The administration has a one-day plan on how to get rid of Maduro, but no idea of what happens after.
And tonight, the president facing sharp condemnation from world leaders over his threats to take over Greenland. The White House not ruling out using the military to do it. The president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal. And of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. The White House saying in a statement, President Trump says controlling Greenland is a matter of national security.
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security, and Denmark is not going to be able to do it.
Amid the escalating tensions, Denmark and Greenland now requesting a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And with the stability of the NATO alliance on the line, the UK, France, and Germany signing on to a statement defending Greenland's sovereignty.
We're now seeing Nicolas Maduro departing, coming out of that helicopter. We're going to see his wife probably depart right after that. Just remarkable to see this. It was just the early morning hours of Saturday that this man and his wife were running a country of more than 30 million people. And then that dramatic and violent U.S. military operation taking place has now captured them and now making their way with their hands bound in those tan jumpsuits to be facing a federal judge.
Trump has demanded Venezuela cut ties with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba before Trump allows oil production by Venezuela to continue. Venezuela has said, nah, that's my sovereignty. I have my rights to have ties with whatever country I want. And Trump said, yeah, you have to listen to exactly what we say and cut ties. Those countries have not stepped in line. They are beyond my sphere of influence. They're beyond my control. So you can't be in that camp because you're in North/South America. So, you, Canada, Greenland, Mexico, Colombia, all of you lot need to fall in line quick time, double quick time. And America, after basically making those demands, has proceeded to start chasing around oil tankers literally around the globe in an effort to enforce this demand on Venezuela. That you can't sell oil, we will blockade, we will disrupt your oil, which basically makes up the vast majority of your economy. Your whole economy will collapse if you can't get a drop of oil out of your country and sell it. We will make sure you can't get a drop of oil out of your country and sell it unless you fall right in line. Read my lips, Rodriguez. Your country can't sell or export oil. Not 1 barrel, not 5, not 6, not 4, not 10. Trump does that weird number thing, right? 500%, 800%. 1,600%, 1,400%, that's a lower number, but he makes it sound like... Anyway, sorry. So, now what's crazy is Trump's administration has basically outlined that the Americas, North and South America, that Western Hemisphere, as it were, is within America's sphere of influence, so we will run it as we see fit. International law, more like international L, or LOL, sovereignty, doesn't count, remember? If there's a bigger fish and they don't like you. Rules-based world order, yes. Yes, I make the rules, you follow the order. That's based. I've got a bit too much energy today, I think. Let's dial it back. That's the news. Now here is actually more news. You see, Trump has just greenlit a bill that sanctions China and India if they continue to buy Russian oil. The bill allows for up to 500% sanctions on countries that buy Russian oil. The objective of that being, stop buying Russian oil, mate, please. I actually asked nicely, sort of, not really. But you didn't comply. So now, sanctions, baby. I mean tariffs, or both. Now the thing is, it's not a perfect analogy. In fact, it's subpar. But this is the analogy that came to my mind. It's like if I decide to sanction Asda. That's a grocery store, supermarket in the UK. I can, technically, sanction Asda, physically. But I don't think Asda will struggle too much, you get me? Because it's Asda, right? I'm just one guy, and Asda has loads of buyers of their products. Now, the analogy is not accurate completely, but what I'm trying to get across is India and China jointly make up 2 billion, a quarter of the world's population. And they're quite sizable economies. India especially is not heavily reliant on the US compared to many other countries. And China, well, Trump did this dance with China quite a few times now. And China has shown they've got things that they can respond with to put additional pain on America that made Trump go, okay, never mind, let me just roll that back. We've been through this, right? Maybe Trump has forgotten, I don't know. Now that's a joke, by the way. He hasn't forgotten. He's not an idiot, despite his best efforts to convince you he is. He's not. He's actually a smart guy with great deal-making capabilities. Now, India and China getting slapped by 500% sanctions, or tariffs, for not adhering to the sanctions on Russia, there we go, is a threat that Trump will struggle to deliver on. That's factual. It would cause huge pain to America and Americans if Trump did that, because imports from those countries would dry up to America. And for what? So Russia can't sell oil to them. And why do you want that? So Ukraine can hold out longer and negotiate from a position of strength. Well, it's not a bad idea, actually, to be fair, because Russia relies on its oil exports to fund its economy and its government, and part of that is funding the very expensive, conflict is expensive, funding the invasion of Ukraine, relies upon that, you could say. But sanctions and tariffs, you see, against especially large economies and economic blocs and developed countries or developing countries, they only go so far, tariffs and sanctions, before you dilute the value of your own tariffs and sanctions. They're far more effective against single, isolated nations long term that you can pick off and keep severely hampered, keep from developing, like Venezuela, like Iran, like North Korea, like Cuba. Keep them so unappealing for the international community to invest in through your threats and your sanctions to other nations that those countries simply can't get up on their feet. That's what we saw with Iran, though they're actually holding up quite well after 50 years of sanctions, but they're in severe pain, relatively speaking. Venezuela's industry sucks. Oil industry sucks. Why? Partly because of sanctions, also partly because of mismanagement and trying a socialist economic model alongside severe sanctions. No one in Venezuela basically was capable, savvy enough to make that work, for better or worse. Now, even then, where you pick on isolated nations to sanction and tariff to keep them down, even then, sanctions actually force your adversaries to innovate. So eventually, they're going to have some sort of advantage you didn't expect them to have. So in summary, more tariffs, more sanctions, America working overtime to try and shore up their control of the American supercontinent, what is called the Western Hemisphere, or LATAM, Latin America and North America, or the Americas. They are pressuring Venezuela to detach from Russia and China diplomatically. The Americans are pressuring India and China to detach from Russia in terms of oil. In the end, potentially, instead of successfully detaching everyone from everyone else, in terms of your adversarial nations, you may just see sentiment in those countries solidify, unify into one block, like all of us against the common bully. Time will tell how things turn out, and I'll be here to report to you the news and the analysis, unbiased and without the Western spin. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mahfouz, your news baba, and I'll see you on the next one.
It is so clear that the Trump administration had not a single clue about what came next after they captured Venezuelan president. Because here's what's happened. The vice president of Venezuela, Darcy Rodriguez, she's been sworn in as president of Venezuela. She immediately said that President Maduro's reign as president was valid and that Venezuela would use all of their resources to protect Venezuela, its land, and its people. Guess what else? She's in Russia right now. That's right. The acting president of Venezuela went to Russia for protection, and Russia has denounced the United States. Who else is aligned with Venezuela? Iran and China. So now what has happened is we have tried to take the leader of a country, and that country stood up and said, no, he is our president and we are going to fight you. And now they have allies all around the world. This is the dumbest thing in a year of dumbery that I have never seen the likes of. Guys, this is really going to be the situation where the United States is about to learn that we don't run the world. They didn't have a plan or a clue about what was to happen next. And now they have just set it up for the entire world to be opposed to the United States. And maybe that's what needs to happen at this point. Maybe that will bring some sense back into this country and about where our place is in the world. Go out there and love your neighbor.
Who's in charge of Venezuela right now?
Don't ask me who's in charge because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
That means we're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
We're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
No, I haven't, but other people
Do you want to?
Yeah, at the right time I will.
Do you see that pushback from Rodriguez and ultimately...
Well, I don't think there was pushback. I think that...
She
frankly,
called it...
Well, you hear a different person than I hear.
Really? So you have spoken with her?
We talked to them, yeah.
Oh, you did speak.
They've been very good.
Because she called it kidnapping of Maduro.
It's all right. It's not a bad term.
He's not kidding. It is becoming increasingly clear that the president is serious about the United States taking Greenland. And the White House just said a short time ago the president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal. And of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. Utilizing the military on a NATO ally? Now, in case you didn't know, Greenland is a territory of Denmark, a NATO ally, and the United States already has presence in Greenland. We have a military base there, like all the military bases we've established in lots of NATO countries. The base in Greenland was an Air Force base. Now it's a Space Force base. So if we're already there, why does President Trump insist that the United States take Greenland away from Denmark and make it part of the United States?
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you.
I think it's helpful to look at a map so you can understand what President Trump is talking about. Obviously, there is Greenland right there, and here is the United States. Now, it's unclear where in this water those Russian and Chinese ships are located, but obviously, in the eyes of President Trump, it's too close for comfort. Most military experts say that the Danes and the Greenlanders are willing to work with the United States with any kind of strategic operation the U.S. wants to run. So why take it? It's unclear. It's also unclear what legal rationale Trump could use to justify taking that kind of military action against Greenland. We're not at war with Greenland. Greenland is not a threat to the United States. In fact, it's an ally. Drugs are not coming from Greenland. And if it's such a national security concern, again, the Greenlanders and the Danes are already on our team and they're willing to help us out with whatever military operation we want to run. Now, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has suggested to lawmakers that the United States may be willing to purchase Greenland. But the Greenlanders and the Danes say Greenland is not for sale, and they aren't the only ones talking about this. Today, our other European NATO allies, including the President of France, the Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Ministers of Italy, Poland, Spain, and the United Kingdom, along with the Prime Minister of Denmark, released this statement directed at President Trump without mentioning his name once.
Do you remember how many times people in MAGA, Republicans, conservatives, MAGA members, Trumpers, told us Obama was going to get us into World War III? If Hillary was elected, she would get us into World War III. Biden was going to get us into World War III, or he was heading us down that path. If Kamala was elected, she was going to get us into World War. We've been hearing this for years. This Democrat, that Democrat, this Democrat, that Democrat. If they're in power, they're going to get us into World War III. I want you to think about what's going on right now. Right now, Donald Trump is threatening a NATO ally. He's threatening to invade Greenland. Greenland is owned by Denmark. Denmark is a NATO ally. NATO has a rule that says an attack on one is an attack on all. If any NATO member is attacked by any nation, the rules of NATO say the remaining NATO forces join to fight whoever it is that's attacking the NATO member. So if Donald Trump keeps on with the course of action that he's currently taking and he goes through with invading Greenland, and if the NATO rules go into effect the way they're supposed to, then what would happen is the United States would invade Greenland and every other NATO nation would send troops to Greenland to fight us. We would be at war with the world. Get it? Every single thing they ever said the Democrats were going to do, they've done. Every single, they're going to destroy the economy. They're going to crush jobs. They're going to, all of it. You fucking name it. They're going to get us into World War III. We're going to be participating in regime change. We're going to be giving too much money to foreign nations. Fucking name the accusation. They're doing it, including bringing us to the brink of being at war with the whole of NATO. Russia would probably be on our side. Imagine that. We enter into another global conflict with Russia being one of the superpowers. And this time, we're on their side.
We have some important news right now. A joint statement on Greenland supporting Denmark and Greenland has been issued by European leaders, including President Macron from France, Chancellor Merz from Germany, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, Prime Minister Tusk of Poland, Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, and Prime Minister Frederiksen of Denmark on Greenland. I'll read you the statement right now. It just came into my inbox from the German government. Arctic security remains a key priority for Europe, and it is critical for international and transatlantic security. NATO has made clear that the Arctic region is a priority, and European allies are stepping up. We and many other allies have increased our presence, activities, and investments to keep the Arctic safe and to deter adversaries. The Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland, is a part of NATO. Security in the Arctic must therefore be applied collectively in conjunction with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability and inviolability of borders. These are universal principles, and we will not stop defending them. The United States is an essential part in this endeavor as a NATO ally and through the defense agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the United States of 1951. Greenland belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland, and them only, to decide on matters concerning Denmark.
We have the entirety, damn near, of the European Union going, hey, knock it off. Now, I want you to think about it. What happened with the world wars, right? You had a couple of superpowers fighting many nations, right? A couple of nations fighting many nations. You had Japan in the last big war. Japan, Germany, and Italy were the Axis, and the rest of us were the Allies. Think about what we could be on the verge of right now. We could be on the verge of the United States invading Greenland and the European Union needing to send forces to Greenland to fight the United States there, which would leave the back door open, so to speak, with Russia, who's already in Ukraine, to potentially overrun the remainder of that nation and go into Poland, forcing European Union members to fight on an eastern front with Russia. I'm just saying, as somebody that really got into World War II history and facts over the course of his lifetime, this is really fucking creepy. That Europe is already, in one sense, fighting Russia on an eastern front, and that front could easily expand if Russia feels a weakness in Europe because many of their forces are in Greenland fighting us. What were we doing 100 years ago? And yes, I understand. I was incorrect about 100 years before 100 years ago, that there wasn't a similar type of uprising. But where were we 100 years ago? 100 years ago, we were in early 1926. We were steamrolling towards an economic disaster while seeing the rise of fascism across the globe. And ultimately, after the economic collapse, we would see ourselves in a global military conflict.